This is where big creative ideas should really ladder into a larger strategy. So the goal is relevance with as many people as possible because there are a lot of people watching.
Marketing Architects.
Hello, and welcome to the Marketing Architects, a research-first podcast dedicated to answering your toughest marketing questions. I'm Elena Jasper. I run the marketing team here at Marketing Architects, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Rob DeMars, the Chief Product Architect of Misfits and Machines, and Angela Voss, the CEO of Marketing Architects.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
We're back with our thoughts on some recent marketing news, always trying to root our opinions in data, research, and what drives business results. The Super Bowl is in just a few short days, and since we are a TV agency, we couldn't really resist producing some Super Bowl content. And one thing that's tough every year about covering this game is by the time you see the ads, review them, and comment on them, it's kind of old news. So we thought we could get ahead of things this year by sharing what you should look for when you watch the ads this Sunday. But we'll start, as we always do, with some research. I chose a work article from Mark Ritson because I wanted to have sort of a reality check before we start a very creative-focused podcast. It's titled, Marketing Doesn't Start with Creativity, but with Diagnosis. And this is a summary of a talk that he gave at Cannes last year. In that talk, he challenges the idea of creativity as the ultimate driver of marketing success. He says it's critical, but it comes at the very end of the process. Marketing starts with diagnosis, understanding your customer, doing market research, and understanding what your brand means to people. From there, it's all about strategy, who you're selling to, how they perceive you, and what you want them to think about your brand. Creativity is really relevant after this groundwork is laid, and it contributes about 40% to ad effectiveness, but Ritson warns against over-glorifying it. And I want to bring that up because this episode is focused on creative effectiveness, but it's really just one piece of the puzzle, and everything these brands did leading up to their Super Bowl commercials is much more important. But let's have some fun with some data. I have some specific stats that you can maybe bring to your Super Bowl watch party this weekend to impress and more likely annoy your friends and family. The cost of a 30-second Super Bowl spot started at just $37,500 in 1967. This year, it is over $7 million. The Super Bowl is the most watched TV event, and 80% of its viewers typically report remembering the ads, but only 50% recall the brand that was advertised. Beer brands have historically dominated Super Bowl ads, with Anheuser-Busch spending over $500 million on ads since 2000. The longest Super Bowl ad was a 5-minute spot by Chrysler in 2011. 80% of Super Bowl ads are teased or released online before the game to maximize impact. And finally, Rob, you'll like this one, Super Bowl Sunday is the second largest food consumption day in the US after Thanksgiving, and we Americans consume 1.4 billion chicken wings during the game.
Yikes.
Every day is the largest food consumption day in my world.
Goodness. Lots to unpack there, lots of data. I like what Mark says, just in terms of starting with strategy and understanding of kind of where your brand's at. I think makes a lot of sense, especially for the Super Bowl with, the audience just being notably larger and more diverse compared to regular NFL games. I don't know that people realize how much larger the audience is and more diverse. We all, of course, show up to Super Bowl parties and such, but it's a 10x viewership event and compared to a regular season game. And the demographics shift markedly. Obviously, there's an increase in female viewership during the Super Bowl. In recent years, the most substantial growth has been among women aged 18 to 24. So that's happening. And so for brands, this isn't just about reaching more people. You have this opportunity, this unique opportunity event to engage with a more diverse audience. And so when you think about the strategy from a brand perspective, are we going to speak to the consumers that are maybe already purchasing our product or service? Or do we have an opportunity to really kind of broaden messaging and create appeal and relevance with a new group of individuals?
Yeah, it's definitely a signature event, but you just got to go $7 million. $7 million. And that's for a 30-second commercial. And, how many are 60 seconds that are running? It's $14 million. And I was thinking about that when I heard $7 million. And I'm like, oh, I'm old. I started my career in the late 90s. And so I was thinking, gosh, how much has a gallon of milk increased in cost since 1999? And it's 21%. A postage stamp since 1999 is increased by 100%. That's a lot, right? A movie ticket, also 100%. Car has increased 137%, and a gallon of gas has increased by 175% since 1999. Right. And back in 1999, I mean, I thought the price of a Super Bowl commercial was already astronomical. Mm-hmm. So what percent increase do you guys think it is, a Super Bowl since 1999? So if gas was 175% higher since 1999, what do you think a Super Bowl spot, the increase in cost?
Yeah, it's a good question. So 67, it was 37,500. I don't think this has been a linear increase.
No, I don't think so either. And all this math is from ChatGPT, so blame Sam Altman if I have it wrong. But
so it's probably wrong, basically.
I mean, geez, back in 99, I was in high school. What was the cost of a Super Bowl spot? 2 million? A million?
Yeah, it was 1.7 million. Okay. So it's 337% higher than, and so you just go, wow, you know, when you think about all these other relative costs, the Super Bowl just continues to demand, right? It's relentless.
Well, I think every year we have less and less of those types of viewership opportunities. So it probably has become more valuable.
That's a great point. I mean, what will it be 10 years from now? You know, I mean, we'll be sitting there going, gosh, 30-second is $15 million. Like, that's just, which means then if you run a 60, you're running $30 million for a TV. I mean, come on. Wow.
Yeah. Maybe 10 years from now, the advertising will look totally different. We'll all be sitting in the metaverse, seeing our own custom Super Bowl commercials.
Absolutely.
Which some could argue will be less effective. But that's part of the power of a Super Bowl ad is like everybody saw it. We all saw the same ad and you can all talk about it.
Absolutely. It's a shared experience.
Right. Well, that's cool, Rob. That's some great
serious
data.
Math.
Yeah. We'll see if anybody fact checks you on that, but I'm going to assume that you're right.
I'm going to assume that Sam Altman had it right.
Well, before we get into what you should be watching for with this year's commercials, I wanted to talk about just advertising the Super Bowl in general and when it might make sense or not make sense, because it's not always worth that high cost that Rob was just talking about. There are a lot of stories of flops from the Super Bowl. I'm sure that a lot of us have heard a few. One of the famous ones is Pets.com went bankrupt 9 months after spending millions on a Super Bowl ad in 2000. So, Ange, when do you think it makes sense for a brand to invest in a move as big as the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think with that Pets.com one as well, I feel like I remember that was one of the spots that really had a struggle with brand recall on that. So not to say that that's the reason they went bankrupt, but I don't think it's a uniform set of criteria that answers the question for a brand of whether or not a Super Bowl spot makes sense. I do think that it's hard for me to argue that it makes sense if that brand is not at least semi-consistently using television. You're going to come to the big stage on the biggest stage with the highest cost. That doesn't make a ton of sense, but it can be an incredible opportunity to drive visibility, create buzz, you know, cement your place in culture, depending on what your brand is. It doesn't make sense for everyone. It's a premium platform, and I think premium platforms require premium strategy, you know. So when a brand has a clear goal and has the resources to follow through, are they trying to launch a new product? I think I had read Cheetos is doing that this year with a new flavor, or bringing back an old flavor. Are they entering a new market?
Was it going to be cheese again?
I think it was maybe cheese pizza or something like that. You know, are they trying to sort of transcend their category, create a new category? Is there a bold objective that really aligns with the scale of a Super Bowl event? But I think without those strong foundations and a clear understanding of existing audience versus potential audience expansion strategies, we had talked earlier, and back to kind of Mark Ritzen's comment. So if you're going to play on that stage, I think you need to be playing the long game. Your ad shouldn't just be memorable for that moment, but create lasting mental availability, have the resources to continue to push that message out into the market, make sure that it ties back to your brand, drives business outcomes beyond that, you know, final whistle of the Super Bowl game.
It is a bet. That's for sure.
It is. It is. It's a big one.
And I think it's great advice that if you're going to advertise in the Super Bowl, you should be a consistent TV advertiser to begin with, because TV's like a different sort of channel to get right and to have effective. So if you're working with a team and a brand that's already figured out the messages that resonate and you've got some experience on TV, people are already a little bit familiar with your brand, it's probably going to set you up for success more than like your whole move for TV is just the Super Bowl. Seems riskier. Well, let's talk about creative effectiveness principles, because I think it could be fun to kind of review what should brands be using, what should we look out for to try to predict when you're watching this weekend, what are going to be the more effective advertisements that come out of the Super Bowl. I asked all of us to come prepared with some principles we believe are important to keep in mind. So Rob, do you want to get us started?
Sure. I just learned a new trick that when you're going to debate something, argue both sides, and then you can't be wrong. I'm going to actually present two sides to what I believe how to make a very compelling Super Bowl commercial. So the first is, if you are going to spend this kind of dough, you better show up. All right. I mean, if you're already in for 7 million or 14 million, like, okay, you better show up. I mean, you better have spots that nobody has seen before. I still marvel when I'm watching the Super Bowl and I see a commercial I've already seen like a month ago. I'm like, really? Like, you didn't think about getting a new tuxedo when you went to the prom? Like, come on now. You wore that last year. Come on, you can do better. I mean, this is the time to show up big, to bring in the celebrities, the crazy, remarkable strategy, the great production value. I mean, if there was one time to show off, it's here. All right. So that's one side of the equation. But I'm also going to argue the other side of the equation and go, man, this is the one I actually get the most excited about, is how do you just really blow people's minds with something that's completely unexpected, completely contrarian. And the example that comes to my mind, and I'm sure many people's minds, is in 2022 when Coinbase did the QR code spot. While everyone else was doubling down on celebrity and high production value, they have a spot with a bouncing QR code that broke the internet, and it cost them the amount of a Mountain Dew that they had to give some editor to make a bouncing QR code on a screen. I mean, that was brilliant. Now, granted, they baited people with, I think, like $15 in Bitcoin. So maybe that's where they dumped all their money. But I guess the point being, I think in both cases, you are on objectively the world's largest advertising stage. So you better show up.
Totally agree. If I've seen this spot before and I show up and see it during the Super Bowl, it feels like a mess.
You actually get pissed because you're
Yeah.
like, I'm actually wanting to watch TV commercials right now. Like, I actually could care less about the football game. I want to see something remarkable.
Right.
And it's like that ad again? Like,
Yeah.
and I don't know is that the local feed or something that's feeding into the, I don't know. But like,
No, I don't think so. I think when that's happened, it's been national, but it's a good point. Like, your goal is to keep attention during this break. And that's a great way to not have that if consumers have seen it. The other thing that I think is rooted in a great idea, but sometimes falls short, is when you see brands that buy multiple spots. Maybe they've got one leading into the Super Bowl, and then they've got two spots, one during second quarter and one during fourth quarter. And there's a story that they're trying to thread throughout. Sometimes those fall short because if you didn't see the first one, you don't understand the second.
Right.
And you're left kind of going like, I didn't get that one. And this is the time where you really want relevance and you want understanding of whatever that story is, which I think ties back again to, I'm a bit of a broken record, but this is where big creative ideas should really ladder into a larger strategy. So the goal is relevance with as many people as possible, because there are a lot of people watching. And then just simple things like we've talked about recently, and we were talking about creative effectiveness of getting the full credit of your spot. Some marketers, to your point, Rob, are doing 60-second spots, so presumably 10 to 15 million. And for the first 50 seconds of the spot, if we don't know who this ad is for, that is honestly an act of violence by the marketing team. against the brand that they work for.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's crazy. And it happens a lot.
That's such a good point. I'll also throw out there, because I've always been a proponent of, as you guys have, and we beat the drum on this a lot, that how important audio is in a commercial. And I gave an example of a commercial that didn't actually have an audio track, Coinbase, in terms of having a voiceover. But I think that this is the one, this event is so unique where you don't have an eyeball problem with the Super Bowl. It's a different level of focus that you have with the consumer. So how are you not doubling down on that somehow?
I agree. Those are all good points. I had a couple of things that are similar, like Rob mentioned, grabbing attention. Obviously, how do you do that right away? And I had written down consistency, make sure it looks like your brand. And if you have distinctive assets, show them and don't share them. Every year, there are like multiple brands who use the same celebrity. And to me, that'd just be a non-starter. If I was working with a celebrity in the Super Bowl, you cannot work with anybody else. Only me. Like, you are my distinctive asset.
It's so confusing.
Yeah.
It's so confusing. You're like, oh, yeah. You start mixing brands.
And then, simplicity and clarity. Please don't spend all this money and then I don't understand who you are or what you do. Something to look for immediately after the Super Bowl is just consistency of that same ad. Are they continuing to run it? Like, do you see integration across other channels? That's going to improve effectiveness. Some type of emotion, make me laugh, make me cry. Just don't make me indifferent. I think most Super Bowl ads try to take swings there. This is something interesting. My team was reading some creative effectiveness research. I think it was from Work. And they talked about how the most effective TV ads, they have a clear storyline teed up in the first 5 seconds. So just the first few seconds, there's some kind of setup. You kind of know where it's going. There's some tension. And then finally, Ange, you mentioned this, just being like culturally relevant. We're going to cover a study later this week about effective Super Bowl creative, and I won't give it all away, but the best ads are relevant to like a current cultural moment or the game itself.
Those are great ones.
Those are really good.
So we just shared what should you keep your eyes peeled for on Sunday. Let's share some actual examples of Super Bowl commercials that we thought were highly effective creatively. So Ange, do you want to get us started?
Yeah, I went back in time a little bit. I didn't know what you guys were going to bring to the table and thought, it might be fun just to go back about 10 years and refresh my brain as to some of the ads that were in and around the 2013, 14, 15 time period. And I found and remembered the Doritos ad that was used during the Super Bowl in 2014. And so it was called Time Machine. We might not remember this one, so I'll just describe it a little bit. But there's an individual, a man walking down the street. He's eating Doritos. You see right away he's eating Doritos. So like brand relevance right at the very beginning. We know who we're talking about. And there's a little boy that has built a time machine out of this big cardboard box. He asks the man, do you want to get in the time machine and go back in time or go into the future? I guess it is. And it's his way to get the Doritos because that's the payment to get into the machine from the individual. And it's really cute, like super warm-hearted. The man really plays into it and is like, oh my gosh, I'm going back in time. And I think a couple of things there that stand out to me. It was just entertaining, but I think, again, broad, relevant event with the Super Bowl. So while traditionally Doritos targets younger consumers, this is a family viewing event. And this time machine ad has this playful tone, this sort of universal humor, I think appeals to parents and potentially even older viewers who might buy Doritos for parties or for their kids. A lot of folks watching the Super Bowl aren't watching it for the game. They're watching it for the ads. And so you've got a non-sports fan relevance there. And then I think it played into women. I don't know how much men loved it, but it was just super cute. This little boy who is creating this magic time machine. And so I thought it was really well done. If you just Google Doritos time machine, it'll pop right up in YouTube.
But check that one out. I don't remember that one. But then again, I don't watch the Super Bowl, but I do watch the ad. So no, I'm excited to take a look at that one.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, I've got one that I almost get choked up when I bring it up, and it's the Google Loretta spot. And I get choked up not as much about the content, but just by how damn good the ad is. It hits all the principles. You start off with Google branding, but it's not forced on you because they're using the product, right? You see the search bar, you hear this really compelling voiceover of an older man, and you see the product being demoed for the entire commercial, yet you want to watch it. You're brought along with it. You see the storytelling that's going into the product. The product is inseparable from the story, which we all know is really the gold standard if you can make it magical, right? And it's a magical product demo, and after the fact, it got so much talk value. It was one of the higher rated clicks on YouTube after the Super Bowl, so it met its effectiveness measure. Great demo, and just made me feel good about the brand Google.
Rob, you put this spot into our chat before this episode, and all you had to say, I just saw Loretta, and I immediately knew what spot it was. That spot made me cry when I saw it. It still makes me cry whenever I watch it. And yeah, it's also one of my favorite ads of all time. It's so good.
It's so good.
What's yours, Elena?
Mine's a little bit lighter. So this was a spot last year in the Super Bowl. I'm sure we all remember it. The Michael Sarah V spot. So this just nailed like distinctive assets and emotion, because Michael Sarah, he's recognizable, he's liked, but he wasn't really associated with any one brand before the game. So this hook into his character was instant. And obviously the wordplay on Sarah and CeraVe was genius, clear, memorable. And then it tied directly back to the product. The product was the hero throughout the ads. Just very funny. I think just like a perfectly like organized and executed Super Bowl ad, which I can appreciate. And again, I know I've said this before about marketing ideas, but I would have loved to be in the room when someone was like, hold on a second, like Michael Sarah. And like, what a just like a genius, like obvious, but amazing idea that was.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was funny.
All right. Well, I thought it might be fun to end this episode with some trivia, because we haven't done a game like this for a while on the show. So I'm going to name this the mental availability match. And I'm going to describe some well-known Super Bowl spots, and we'll see if either of you can guess what brand was behind the spot.
Let's do it.
Okay.
All right. Do we understand? Does everyone understand the rules?
I think I get the
That
rules.
question was to me. And
Yeah.
just
No, I don't know. I think you might smoke me on this one.
Yeah, it's whoever can answer first. And I know that there's a delay sometimes, so we're not really going to know who actually won the contest, but that's fine. Okay. First one. In this commercial, a young woman with a sledgehammer smashes a giant
Apple.
screen. There you go. Okay.
Okay.
1
I
point
had
for Rob.
no chance on that one.
That's an easy one.
Apple 1984.
This ad featured a group of office workers throwing paper wads and yelling, "What's up?" on a conference call.
Budweiser.
Bud Light.
Bud Light. You're right. Bud Light.
I feel like Ange might have gotten that one first.
But she said Budweiser.
I
said
did say
Bud Light.
Budweiser.
I mean, technically my answer was Budweiser. Maybe it is technically Bud Light.
It is
Now you
Bud
have me
Light.
wondering.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh.
Parent company versus the brand.
Okay. A baby.
We're all right.
A baby.
A baby. Speaking like an adult.
E-Trade.
Oh, E-Trade.
Okay. Rob's like crushing it. Okay. A horse kneels in tribute to the statue.
Budweiser.
Anheuser-Busch.
Okay. Budweiser, I think, is technically correct.
Yeah.
This is for Angela. All right. A boy dressed as Darth Vader tries to use the
VW.
Force. Oh, Ange, I thought you were going to get that one because you love that ad.
I didn't get that one.
This ad featured a simple, colorful, bouncing QR code that grabbed viewers'
Coinbase.
attention.
Coinbase.
Okay, I'll give that one to Ange. I heard her first, but Rob kind of walked away with that one. Fun. All right. Well, you got
was
all of
fun.
them though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There wasn't a single one you missed. So hey, power of a well done Super Bowl ad. Those are all a mix from different years, and we knew all of them.
Who directed the Apple spot?
I don't know who.
Ridley Scott.
Oh wow. That is an iconic ad.
It is.
Also, I think the E-Trade babies are a slept on distinctive asset. Those are fun.
Did they do that last year too?
I remember them playing tennis.
Oh,
Did they have
okay.
them in like a tennis match or something?
I can't remember.
It's such a great campaign. You talk about distinctive assets, and it's like, holy smokes, that thing has had legs. I mean, they just keep, bringing that. Who doesn't want to watch a baby talking like an adult? It's just
It's
funny.
always funny.
It's
no
just
matter
like,
what.
It doesn't matter.
That was like in one of our spots, we put adult heads on babies. It's like,
Yes.
it's never not funny.
It's never not funny and slightly creepy.
I mean, that's another principle that we didn't talk about is not just consistency after the Super Bowl for the next, X number of
Right.
months or whatever, but you can hear the arguments in the marketing department about whether or not the idea is old, and should we do it again?
Yeah. Yeah.
but it works, you know.
It works. Yeah. Bring the damn baby back and
Totally.
and you'll be in the top 10. That's it. Like, don't make it hard. Put it in any situation. Have it talk about trading stocks. Everyone will laugh.
America's not sick of the baby. Just keep going.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if Google did that every year. You know, they haven't really had an ad like Loretta. I wouldn't mind some heartfelt. I mean, Google probably use more of that with their brand, so maybe they should bring that back.
The Clydesdales. I mean,
My
come
favorite.
on. Totally.
I resisted talking too much about the Clydesdales on this episode, but
Oh, I just love the Clydesdales. The one after 9/11 just, oh gosh, hit me.
Yeah, I'm not a Clydesdale person, you know.
Rob, I don't
wanna
know if
see
we
the
can be friends anymore.
I'm waiting for the Clydesdale to like fart or start talking. You know,
No.
like I need something else to happen here. But I know it works. Hey, I'm an expert in my opinion. It's just, you know, I prefer the farting horse.
well, the next time you get to direct a Super Bowl ad, Rob, I'm sure they'll love to hear your ideas. That's it for this episode of The Marketing Architects. We'd like to thank Taylor De Los Reyes for producing the show. You can connect with us on LinkedIn, and if you like the podcast, please leave us a review. Now go forth and build great marketing.
Marketing Architects.